So, I have a cat named Raven who's 3 years old. My girlfriend of 2 years moved in with me a few weeks ago, and it was clear she didn't like my cat. I didn't think it was really a big deal until one day I got home and he was just gone. He's not an outdoor cat and he never goes outside. He was gone for hours and I was worried sick until my buddy came to my house and returned him, saying he found him 2 blocks from my house. I asked my girlfriend how my cat, who has never tried to go out before, ended up that far from my house, and she admitted to kicking him out. I was furious, saying she had no right to kick him out and told her that since she thought she had the power to kick my cat out, I wanted her out of my house by the end of the month. She cried that she had nowhere to go and that she would have to live on the streets. I said I didn't care and told her to leave by the end of the month. My friends think I'm being too harsh, but my cat could have died because of her and I don't want her trying anything else. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. If I were you, I would definitely safeguard your cat until then. Maybe you can get someone you trust to look after your cat until then. People who are abusive often target their partner's pets, by the way. As for her not having a place to stay, she might have a point there if she let her old place go to move in with you. Giving her until the end of the month might not be enough. There is no way you should ever have anything to do with this person again, but no one deserves to be thrown out on the streets. So you might have to scramble to help her get a place or give her some money to hold her over. Sorry you are in this horrible situation. Well, you have a much more tolerant view than me. She would have found herself and her crap on my front doorstep the minute she admitted kicking my cat out. What a horrible thing to do. Poor Raven, hope Kitty is okay. I have an indoor boy and he's frightened of outside. He runs when I open the front door and he'd be traumatized if someone kicked him out. Not the idiot. Your friends can house your girlfriend if they feel so sorry for her. Not the idiot. Apart from the situation with the cat itself, which is bad enough, I agree. This shows a lack of respect for other people and not just their property, but things that are dear to them. She knew how much that cat meant to you, and yet she was willing to allow it to get lost or killed for her own convenience, because she didn't like it. This shows a lack of concern for other people, lack of caring about their feelings, and that isn't someone I would want to be with. So I agree to have her leave. I would not want to continue to live with someone like that, or even date them. She is showing her true side, and it's better to know now than after marriage. My son, 10, recently started receiving allowance from me since his dad is unemployed, and also because my son likes to have his own money to spend on stuff he wants. The problem is that I discovered by accident that my husband has been taking the money from our son to buy his own stuff like cigarette or a drink. He'd approach our son whenever he has money and tell him he'll buy him what he wants, but ends up spending the money on something else, something for him, not our son. Our son obviously cannot drive by himself and buy his own stuff, so my husband offers to buy stuff for him using, of course, his allowance. I'm a nurse working long shifts most of the time, so I'm not always home. Every time our son wants something, my husband would be like, "Hey bud, you want few bags of Doritos for you and the other kids? I'll stop by supermarket and get them for you then." That would be X dollars. Then our son gives him the money, but never receives his Doritos. Rinse and repeat. This went on for 2 months till my son told me. Turns out my husband asked not to tell mommy because she'd get mad at him and he'll be in trouble, and promised to get him his stuff, but he never does. I had a big fight with my husband about it. He said it wasn't big deal since he always end up getting our son the stuff he want 99% of the time. He told me to consider this as gas money since he drives X of kilometers to the supermarket to buy what our son wants. I shamed him for taking advantage of our son and taking the money that was meant for him, and said he was acting like a thief, but worse when stealing from his own son. I then said I won't be handing our son any allowance anymore, and my husband said I was overreacting and punishing our son for no reason. I said I'll handle our son's needs from now on, but he argued that I can't when I'm busy working all the time. I said it was none of his business and walked out the room. He kept nagging me saying my son will resent me if I stop handing him money, but I refused to engage any further in the argument and the guilt tripping. He keeps calling me heartless and financially controlling to take away the allowance. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your husband sounds like an absolute treat. He steals from your son, then gaslights him and you, all because he doesn't want to get a job. Then says that your son will resent you for not giving him his allowance in cash. Nope. If anyone will be the subject of your son's resentment, it'll be his father who steals from him and lies about it. Not his mother who's trying to protect him from his father's crappy behavior. Also, gas money. Really? It's not like your husband is supplying the gas for the car since he's unemployed. That's a really lame excuse. So not only is he stealing from his son, he also doesn't see the issue there. That's not normal. Is this new behavior? Or has he lacked insight in his own behavior before? Also, does he not have any money at his disposal? I know he is unemployed, but does he have access to a joint account or something? This behavior and his attitude about it need to be addressed. If he isn't willing to do that, you'll need to look into ways to protect your son from this influence. You don't want your kid to think this is normal or acceptable behavior. So let me get this straight, your unemployed husband thinks it's cool to take your son's allowance for his own personal needs. Instead of filing for unemployment and hunting for work, he'd rather lie and take money from his 10-year-old. Not the idiot. But wow, your husband is a huge idiot, and this goes way deeper than allowance. This about trust, and your husband's behavior is sporting some huge red flags. I just bought a house in a suburban area, and on the Halloween weekend my friends and I planned on going camping and making a party of it. We'd be going from Saturday afternoon to Sunday evening. I've never lived in a place that does much trick-or-treating. I grew up really rural where every house was a mile from the next, and then I lived in a college town where the thing to do was throw a house party or go out to the bars. So when I absent-mindedly headed out on my camping trip leaving my outdoor lights on and pumpkins on my porch, I didn't think much of it. I got home from camping and there were a bunch of kids and parents waiting on my porch, and when I was driving up I heard my neighbor yell to the group she's not answering the door, and then I remembered Sunday was actual Halloween. My friends and I celebrated on Friday and Saturday nights. I got home and the neighbor on one side asked me where I'd been. It was almost the end of trick-or-treating, and I'd been away all day and missing their texts. I said I was camping, then driving a carpool of my friends home from camping. My neighbor said I'd really inconvenienced him by setting up my decor for trick-or-treat, leaving all the lights on, and then not being home, making him tell groups every few minutes all night to not bother waiting. I said sorry, I didn't remember it was trick-or-treating that night. The neighbor next door on the other side came by at that point and said that this is a really big neighborhood for trick-or-treat, it's a family neighborhood, and it wasn't neighborly of me to be away for Halloween and not participate. I started to get frustrated because I hadn't even known Halloween was a big deal to them. I hadn't even remembered it was actually Sunday and not Saturday, and I felt like they were mad because I didn't do something that I didn't even know would be important to them. Like if one of them said Halloween is really important to them in advance and they'd like me to contribute, I could have tried to be home or put out a bowl of candy or something. I told both neighbors that it wasn't fair of them to be mad over something I didn't even know would be a big deal, and they said that it should have been obvious to me not to decorate for Halloween and leave the lights on and then go out. Am I the idiot for being away on Halloween? I don't live in the USA, but this is insane. Nobody is obligated to be at home for their neighbors at any time. Nobody is obligated to keep their lights off to prevent being pestered in their own home. It is good security practice to leave lights on in a home when you are away overnight to give the impression of occupation. It's also completely reasonable security practice for what sounds like a single female to leave her porch lights on for when she will be coming home in the dark. The entitlement of these people is mind-boggling to me. I remember when my wife and I were doing premarital counseling, a big part of it revolved around conflict resolution. One thing we were warned about doing was having expectations that were never communicated and then becoming angry when those expectations were not met. Your neighbors could probably use a dose of this. So, not the idiot. Side note. This situation could probably all go away with a little effort. This is really extra, but you could make baggies and put them in a basket by the street with a sign saying, "Sorry I wasn't here for Halloween." Take one. I don't know, could be a little much, but your neighbors would probably get off your back and would think a lot of you, which could end up being the difference in any future disputes. Your house, your decor. Would they have ganged up on you if you had decorated the yard and then been out trick-or-treating with a child? It sounds like they might have, actually, because they sound like idiots through and through. You're absolutely allowed to decorate your home and then go party elsewhere for the night. None of the kids will remember who was home last year and who wasn't. Why the hell did they just stand there and loiter? If no one answers the door, move the hell on. When I, 26, was 22 years old, I had to step up and take custody of my younger brother Isaac. He was 14 then and is now 18. It was really hard on me. I had to step up and suddenly become a parent to him. Our parents were addicts and they're not in the picture, and almost all family abandoned us, promised to be there and just never stepped up. Isaac is a really sensitive kid. Sometimes he has really bad panic attacks and needs huge amounts of reassurance. He's not so independent on the emotional side, but he is still very responsible and doing good in school. He just likes to stay with me and live at home while in college. Recently, he had some friends over and they were drinking. We live in Europe, 18 is legal. I didn't mind that until they got out and wanted to drive around. I called Isaac aside. I asked him what was he doing and he said he only had one beer and that's nothing and that he was fine. I said no and he got upset and started to argue with me. I didn't want to embarrass him, so I told him to go inside and told his friends we had some emergency and that I'm sorry they had to go without Isaac. We had some arguments back and forth. I told him to sit down at the computer and played some compilation of drunk driving videos. Isaac started to freak out after one video, but I made him stay for at least 5 minutes. I was watching it with him. He wasn't having a full-on panic attack, but he was slightly trembling. After that, he just apologized and went to his room. He didn't get out for about 3 hours, and when he did, he wasn't talking to me much. Only short answers. I'm scared I traumatized him. Not the idiot. Drinkers almost never report the correct total of drinks they've had. Cops regularly hear the just 2 beers and have the acronym JTB, knowing that some of them will swear to it despite blowing a BAC of 22. You did the right thing. This is coming from a former drunk driver, sober now 8+ years. I did nearly kill myself in an accident in the early 2000s, no other person and vehicle involved. In my opinion, we can't do enough to inform young people of the dangers of drunk driving. Your son will get over the video. He said he had 1 beer, isn't that the legal limit? If so, you are the idiot. If he's not some crazy irresponsible crackhead and you've whipped this out on him when he hasn't done anything morally or legally wrong, I don't see where you were going with this. If he had not in fact had 1 beer though, then I'm still not sure this was entirely appropriate, but I see why you're mad. I in no way support drinking and driving. Not the idiot. My grandpa worked in railroad safety and showed me a video of a woman and child stuck in the car on the train tracks with the train coming, not gory or even real. It was for a safety campaign. I have never, not once, stopped on the tracks. I will only start moving over the tracks if there is enough space for my car on the other side. I get angry when I see others drive onto the tracks without having enough space on the other side. If I'm in the car with someone who does it, I will tell them off. It was obviously very effective, even if it left me shaken at the time. I met my fiancé on vacation and now live abroad. Despite this, my friend and I have kept up regularly and are still best friends. 6 months before I was engaged, my partner and I started planning a destination wedding. We didn't want a wedding in either of our home countries and wanted for all of our closest friends and family to get to know one another and celebrate our relationship, since it will be near impossible to ever have everyone together again. We chose a destination that is notoriously cheap, and we hope to pay for as much as we can for our guests so that their biggest expense would just be flights. We understand that most people can't afford an international flight with 6-12 months notice. So before we were even engaged, we told our closest friends and family our plan to give them time to save. My friend was very excited for the wedding and seemed to be fine with making the destination work. COVID happened and our wedding that we planned for end of 2021 or mid-2022 had to be postponed to 2023. When I was first engaged, my friend was single. Just over a year later, today, she tells me that her boyfriend and her are getting engaged and having their wedding in 2023. I mention how crazy 2023 will be with so many weddings, not complaining about her date at all, because I knew I would make it work for her. She informs me that she will likely not come to my wedding if it's a destination wedding anymore. She says she doesn't have enough vacation days. She explained that she has 3 weeks off, 1 for their honeymoon, 1 to visit her family who lives a few hours away, and a whole week off for wedding planning. I mentioned that she probably didn't need to take a full week off for wedding planning, and she said that everyone takes off time to meet with vendors. I mentioned that a lot of people get married while having full-time jobs and that most vendors are able to have weekend meetings for that reason, but she dismisses me that I don't understand how weddings work in her area. She then says that even though she will have had 3 years' notice that the United States inflation has increased 5% and so she cannot afford it in addition to paying for her wedding in 2023 and buying a house in 2022. She also told me that she can't afford her partner's flight and he can't either since he doesn't make a lot of money. I asked if she would be willing to come without him. She said no because she didn't want to travel alone. Even after I mentioned that she could travel with one of our mutual friends, she still said no. She said that because we didn't have a set date that I couldn't have expected her to put money aside for the wedding and that life goes on and she has other expenses. I felt like she was putting me in a position to choose between the wedding I've been dreaming of for the past 2 years and having my best friend there. You're the idiot. People have their own lives outside of your wedding. COVID hit a lot of people's pocketbooks badly, and a lot of people may not be able to recover for a while. She's gotta look at the bigger picture. She doesn't need to put herself into debt for you. This is the price you pay for a destination wedding. If you want her there so much, offer to pay for her. She is getting married, and she can't make it to your wedding. Period. Not because she's malicious or wants to ruin you. They don't make a lot of money and plans have changed. You should be happy for her and plan another way to celebrate together. Don't try to dictate her plans and make her out to be a bad person because she isn't prioritizing you over herself. People cancel on weddings all the time. It's not the end of the world. If you're truly friends, you'll get over it. From what it sounds like, your friend just doesn't have the time or the money to go to your wedding. She doesn't sound mad. This is what happens when you have a destination wedding. People can't go. You're making this all about you and ignoring the fact that your friend's life is changing in a lot of ways. Congratulate your friend on her engagement and getting a house and let it be. You can set up a Zoom call so that people who can't go to your wedding can still watch it live.